How's it going, guys? I'm that socially awkward gamer you probably forgot existed, otherwise known as IAmPattyJack. These are 5 things I like and 5 things I dislike about Elite Dangerous. So let's start off with the good. The game looks great, and it runs great. I don't think I have ever said those 2 things in a mutually exclusive sentence. Seriously, this game looks fantastic. All the planets, all the space stations, everything you're doing, everywhere you go, looks fantastic. Now you're thinking, well, it's a AAA game, technically. It got really backed on Kickstarter. It probably gets like 20 frames, right? That's where you're wrong. This game actually runs really well. Normally when I play a AAA style game, my CPU and GPU levels are at like 90% and at least 75 degrees. This game manages to keep everything at 60% and 60 degrees. I don't know how they did it. This game is huge. I can only chalk it up to optimization. So, other developers, look at this. Look at all that optimization and do it. You have no excuses anymore. This game runs great and it looks fantastic. The game's got solid controls across the board. Now, solid controls and easy controls are 2 different things. This game has a very steep learning curve when you're still learning where all the controls are. Now, it helps because when you're actually in your ship, you can look around your cockpit and you can actually bring up like all the holographic menus and all that stuff. And you can actually manually turn different systems on or off or divert your power without learning all the hotkeys right away, which I would highly recommend doing. So when I was still learning how to jump to hyperspace or how to enter super cruise mode to get to another planet in the system, I could at least look over to my menu and manually engage it with my WASD keys, instead of learning that I need to hit H for super cruise and J for hyperspace, or whatever you have it set to. So the game controls really well, and it is a steep learning curve, but it gives you a way to manually do it until you can remember all the hotkeys, which is like mucho appreciated. And it also supports keyboard and mouse, gamepads, and joysticks. Most joysticks too. Like I've got a really crappy third-party one, and it supports it fine. The combat in the game is skill-based and rewarding. This is not a game like Eve, where you find another ship, and then you click attack, and the guy with the most numbers wins. This game is very much a skill-based game. You're going to be dogfighting and, destroying other ships and trying not to die, and it's all going to be based on how good you are, as well as the equipment you've acquired. So, in theory, someone with a crappy little starter Sidewinder ship could take out someone with a Cobra, if they were a much better pilot. The Cobra's going to have an advantage. There's no argument against that. But it is possible. It's not just who has the bigger numbers wins. And I really enjoy that. And it's fun, too. It feels extremely responsive on the joystick, and you can use it with a mouse and keyboard as well, and a gamepad. The combat feels good. It feels the right amount of Star Wars-y arcade and simulation-y. It's got a good mix there. And that results in a very, very enjoyable flight experience. When you're playing the game, you feel like you are in a huge universe, a huge galaxy. It feels fantastic. You feel like there's stuff going on way over on the other side of the galaxy. There's a civil war going on, or someone just rose into power, some planet defected into the other organization. And there's so much going on all the time. You always get news bulletins. It feels like a big world that you have yet to tap into. They do a good job of making you feel that way. And to top it off, there's a decent amount of customization for your ship, and there's a decent amount of ships available for purchase. So you can soup up your starter ship if you want to, and make it the best Sidewinder ever. And depending on what station you go to is going to have different internal library parts in order for you to buy. So that means you might go to Station A and find a really crappy engine. Then you might go to Station B and find a really good engine at a really good price. It all depends on where you are and where you're finding the best deals. On top of that, there's a lot of ships you can buy as well. There's a great amount of variation for all types of players. So if you want to be a combat person, you buy, say, an eagle. If you want to be a trader, you buy a hauler. You can buy enough different types of ships that make you feel like you're all doing kind of a different profession. You all have a different purpose in the world. So that's the good. Now let's go ahead and look at the bad. There is a huge lack of social tools and interaction with other players in the game. There really isn't any at all. It seems like the ones that they do have, the apparent text chat menu and the voice comms, they don't even seem to work most of the time. And there's really no reason to interact with another player unless you are, like, fighting each other or he has a bounty on his head. You can't really trade with other players ship to ship. There's no way to do that. No one really talks to each other when you see them. They all just kind of feel like the background. It feels like you're playing a game like Destiny, where it's trying to be an MMO, but the players don't really, like, pay attention to each other. You might be shooting at the same thing, but you might as well just be playing with AI and in a single player game. It doesn't really make any difference. On top of that, playing with your friends is a big hassle that they really need to fix. It took me about an hour and a half with my friend yesterday in order to get on the same server so we could play together. There's no way, it doesn't properly show you how to join these servers. It doesn't even tell you what server you're in until you go to this menu, to the start menu. And you end up having to log out and back in until you end up on the same server, which is really, really irritating. You join a private group, and it still doesn't work properly. It doesn't tell you why. It doesn't give you any sort of tutorial in the game as to why you can't play with your friends or what problem you're having. And that really needs to be fixed, because it's not obvious to a lot of people. It's extremely confusing. On top of that, it has no guild or clan system. So I can join a group with my friends. Sure, that's fine, that's great. But I can't make a guild, you know? We can't make an entire, like, network of clans and stuff and ward against other ones. There's no system for that at all. I would really love to see an EVE-like economy and like an EVE guild system where you end up with these big-ass player-controlled factions all fighting against each other, taking over sectors and galaxies and stuff. That would be amazing. But none of that is there, and it really takes away from the experience because you don't feel like you're interacting with anyone. And I want to play with my friends. I don't want to be playing all by myself all the time, because then I'm stuck in a 20-minute commute to the next system with nothing to do and no one to talk to. There are still a fair amount of glitches in the full release of the game. I realize that this is a huge game, so that those glitches are to be somewhat expected to an extent, but things like the really fiddly landing system that they have need to be worked out. Because when you have a timed system for landing, you get 9 or 10 minutes to land, and you end up wasting half of it trying to, like, yaw your freaking ship around on the launch pad until it decides that, yeah, okay, you're close enough, you get to land. I realize that you have to be looking towards the radio tower, but sometimes I swear it doesn't even recognize it when you are. The landing is extremely glitchy, especially on the Sidewinder. It needs to be fixed. There's also been glitches in Super Cruise mode, like a ton of frame drops. I go down to 7 to 10 frames in it. Then as soon as I exit it, I get back up to 60. It's not quite as polished as I would like it to be. And to me, it feels like the game is not quite finished. There isn't a whole lot to do on the quest side either. Your quests are pretty much chalked up to 3 different types. You get bounties, you get fetch quests, and courier quests. So that's really all you get. And then you're rewarded with either credits or reputation in a faction. But what do you do with that? You join the faction and then you get more bounty quests or fetch quests or courier quests. That's all there is. And unfortunately, even after a couple days, it gets very samey. And unless they do a big overhaul, then I feel like a lot of people are going to stop playing because they've done everything already. And the final point for the bad is more of a quote than anything, but I think it pretty well sums up this game. I've used this quote, and I've heard this quote as well, for a variety of other games, including games like Skyrim or DayZ. Elite Dangerous is wide as an ocean, but shallow as a puddle. There is so many places to go, and so much to do. But where you go, and what you do, it all looks the same, and you're always doing the same thing. I feel like the only way to make that last longer, to make that more enjoyable, is a complete overhaul of the social tools and the ability to join guilds with your friends and with other people. Because when you're playing with a guild, when you're playing with your friends, you can create your own story. You're not always bound by what the game has to offer, and in this case, the game hasn't actually got a whole lot to offer past the first few days. That's 10 things about Elite Dangerous. I would highly recommend you go see a proper review of the game, but this is a bit of a guideline to see if you're interested in it or not, and it kind of highlights some of the things that I think are great about the game, and the things that I think need improvement. I am PattyJack, and I will see you guys the next time.